Hey everybody, have you considered starting a podcast? We here at Screwball highly recommend Podbean for getting your podcast out to a larger audience. Podbean has given us the opportunity to easily bring you Screwball each and every week on all of your favorite podcast services. Use the link podbean.com/screwball to sign up and save up to 35% annually. You can also use the link podbean.com/pro/screwball to sign up for a business subscription. Happy podcasting. Hey everybody, welcome back to Screwball, a baseball podcast, your home for everything baseball. I'm your host, Mike Lepre, here with my co-host, Frank White.
Hey, how's it going?
This is episode 113 of Screwball, and a pretty exciting week in baseball for the younger stars of the game. We have some important call-ups here, some that you probably have already seen and taken note of. So with saying that, let's get off to the start that we always do with the news segment of the show. And the first piece of news, again, kind of, as you probably already know if you're listening to this on Wednesday, the Pirates called up shortstop prospect Oneil Cruz. The 6'7" phenom for the Pirates, Oneil Cruz, is finally being given a proper chance at the majors at 23 years old and sits as the 22nd ranked prospect in all of baseball. I believe he was up for a few games last year. I know he played a little bit. I'm not sure how long his stint was, but this is his proper calling up and kind of rookie start to his career. The young shortstop is touted as having great power and speed combo and could be a bright spot for the Pirates' future. So we've already seen a game, of his by the time we're recording this, and he's just got stupid power. His arm at shortstop is unbelievable. He's got great speed for a 6'7" guy. I mean, 6'7" to play shortstop is not easy. So, like I said, by the time you're hearing this, you probably, I would think, would have already seen him play or seen some highlights or something. So I think that this could be a really bright spot, like I said here in the news for the Pirates. I think that he could really be a cornerstone of that franchise coming up, and he's an exciting player. So I know Frank and I are both going to definitely keep our eyes on him. The second piece of news is similar to Oneil Cruz being called up, but on the in the American League. Jeter Downs for the Red Sox was called up. While being highly regarded in the 2020 trade for Mookie Betts, I believe he was kind of like the one or two kind of headliner of that trade. Jeter Downs may be having a more difficult road to staying in the majors now. At the same age as Oneil Cruz at 23 years old, Downs has been having trouble in the minors, batting .180 with 11 home runs and 11 stolen bases in 53 games. He has also struck out in more than 31% of his trips to the plate. So a guy that was really highly regarded by the Red Sox is having a bit of a struggle, but worth mentioning anyway because he is a high prospect, and the Red Sox do think pretty highly of him. I don't think his call-up is anything like an Oneil Cruz where he's pretty much there to stay. I think it's a little bit more to get him some at-bats and some experience before they actually kind of keep him up or figure out what exactly they want to do with him. So, but again, I wanted to bring it up because that's kind of two of the top, higher prospects being called up here. While Oneil Cruz, obviously the bigger of the two, literally and figuratively, it's worth mentioning Jeter Downs as well because, he's big for the Red Sox, or he can be. And the final piece of news I have here is a little different. Are the Baltimore Orioles leaving Baltimore? Was a question kind of asked around a little bit around baseball lately. According to the Associated Press, longtime franchise owner Peter Angelo's sons, John and Lewis, and wife Georgia, are entangled in a legal battle over control of the team. The legal suit suggests that John Angelo has interest in leaving Baltimore. However, following a funding of $1.2 billion to Camden Yards, a move seems unlikely. So the news pretty much came from a filing in the lawsuit that around 2017 or 2018, they talked about, the one son talked really about leaving Baltimore and trying to find a better suitor for the Orioles. And I think it was merely mentioned in passing. I don't think there was any serious consideration because the franchise owner, Peter Angelo, pretty much said they'll never leave as long as he's in control. So I think it's much ado about nothing, but I know it did kind of make some waves and make some news in baseball. So I figured it was worth bringing up anyway because the Orioles have been rough the last few years and are starting to come on a little bit here now with some of their prospects coming up. I wasn't sure if Orioles fans were getting nervous at all if you're in the Baltimore or surrounding area. But those were my three pieces of news. Pretty more optimistic news with Oneil Cruz and Jeter Downs, young players. We have a lot of young players in the game now, and adding to that total is, I think, always, pretty good. So,
Yeah, the Orioles, I don't think they're going anywhere. They're kind of rooted in Baltimore, one of the best stadiums, in the league, even though they ruined the left field. But they'll fix that next year. I think they're going to kind of even it out. But yeah, it's something to note because it is, it's something you don't want to see them leave, especially at that great stadium. But yeah, a couple things I got. I did mention the prospects as well. We had Jeter Downs up. Riley Green recently called up the number 2 prospect.
Yep.
O'Neal Cruz, you mentioned. Gabriel Moreno of recent.
Yep.
There's a lot of big names. C.J. Abrams called back up. So that's 5 of the top, 25 prospects or so called up here of late. Plus the ones we already seen. Nolan Gorman, Matthew Liberatore. We've seen the guy for the White Sox there. We had Jake Berger and Andrew Vaughn of late.
Yep.
Well, Vaughn was kind of there, but Jake Berger kind of up and down, right? Pirates had another guy they called up recently. I believe the Cubs, but Christian Morel was a higher up prospect, I should say.
Right.
So we just see a lot of prospects here. Adley Rushman, of course.
Yeah. Big one.
Royce Lewis before he got hurt. Kellenic was up, for a little while. He struggled, but he was set back down. But there's a lot of prospects, more than I think we've ever really seen.
Yeah.
Because I think they changed the way that the, control years
Yeah.
and service time kind of changed that. So it's great. We're going to see some of these younger guys up and playing.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Especially for these teams kind of, we call it rebuilding. You get some excitement, at least, maybe turns that rebuild instead of taking 4 years, maybe it only takes 3 years because you let the guys come up earlier.
Yeah, just, and
Jeremy Pena.
Yeah.
For the Astros. I mean, it's a lot of young guys. Wander Franco last year. There's just so many guys that are just up. It's unbelievable.
Game's very young,
Jaron Duran, the Red Sox, is up and down. Even if it's just for a cup of coffee, they say it's still good to see.
Right.
Some other news I have: Miles Mikolas was 1 strike away from a no-hitter. Harrison Bader tried tracking it down, just missed it. He's 1 strike away, 128 pitches. We had Tyler Anderson for the Dodgers, was also two outs away.
Something like that.
He was in the 9th inning. He was 100 or so pitches, but he just missed a no-hitter as well. That was all this last week. They were back-to-back days, I believe.
Right.
So we're getting close to a no-hitter. Compared to last year, we had like 8 by this point. Some other news I got here is we're seeing the College World Series. The brackets play out. We're not at the World Series yet, but we're getting down to the last couple teams. That's something noteworthy because you see obviously a ton of prospects there, young guys.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole different game. Pitchers don't pitch long, aluminum bats. The scores go up sometimes, and sometimes there's no score. But there's these games that are 21 to 4. And I think there was a game in the rounds where it was like 20. They were up 17. They were up like 17 to 5 or something crazy like that. And then they scored like 10 in 1 inning, and they ended up coming back and winning or something.
Jesus.
So you see some crazy games that crowds are going nuts. The players are absolutely nuts.
Oh, they're out of their mind.
Yeah. They did some of that stuff in the MLB. You get a pitch up and in, and you'd be planted in the dugout.
Yeah, absolutely.
For good or bad, if you like that or not. But some of the antics are a little too much, I think. But it's just a whole different game. So it's
absolutely.
Something noteworthy. And college baseball, I think, is growing every year for the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, I agree.
And the last thing I got here, with these young players, I just wanted to bring up the fact that, for our topic today, are we too quick as fans or media especially, I think, but too quick to judge or call some of these people and some of these young players and some of these future superstars, greats and legends.
Right.
And I think for sure, it's not even close that we do it just too much. Wander Franco, they're already saying it could be this guy and this guy. And we compare them. Comparisons, too. They don't just compare him to a good all-star, a guy who had 5-6 real good years. They compare him to the greatest shortstop of all time. They compare him to the greatest outfielder. They compare him to Babe Ruth. They compare him to this. You're not even close. And they compare Ohtani to Babe Ruth. Not close. It's just not close. It's not close. Oh, you're going to strike people out. Yeah, well, that's a different game. You didn't have guys up there who bat 180 and they're the best, they're good, like Joey Gallo, right? You had guys up there who, they struggled to a 350 average is how they struggled to. You had guys batting 400, so it's a little bit different game.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, the idea that, some of these guys are all-time greats and, this guy, compare him to here. And, we see, just Wander Franco was a big one. And, Rushman are already kind of ready to give him the reins as the best catcher in baseball already. And, it's like we have to pull back the reins here on what we call a great, and they're ready to call Trout the greatest outfielder of all time. And it's just not...
Yeah, it's
just not smart.
Right.
Or good coverage or good thought process or good idea about anything to call people greats already.
Agreed.
When you have greats in the game.
Right.
Like Albert Pujols. You want to call him a great? He's one of the greatest hitters of all time. And for me, I would have him as the best first baseman who ever played baseball. That's an all-time great. Did not have somewhat of a farewell tour. It's been of late a lot of talk, but that's a different story. But Miguel Cabrera,
Yeah.
like Mike Trout, yeah, he is a great right now in his trajectory, but he has had injuries already. But to call him a great already is a little young in his career.
Yeah.
Acuna, very young in his career. But I think, to just, like I said, to call these guys all-time greats and legends already, Tatis, they want to call legends and greats. I mean, no. That's just not, it's not smart. You're just trying to pull at strings to get people to, pay attention or, can they be good? Can you compare them to these guys? Sure. But let's not, go overboard. What happened to comparison to a guy who's just pretty good? Who had a really good, solid career or an all-star? This is where I think this guy can compare to. But if he strengthens up, he can be one of these Hall of Fame type players.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Hey, I'm going to compare him to this guy, but if he develops faster and develops a little bit this way, he could be this guy at a Hall of Fame level. You know what I mean? I have no problem with that, but just to be like, oh, this guy, yeah, he's, Cal Ripken.
Yeah, it's like,
It's hard to beat that.
Yeah.
Especially when you have greats like that already in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like pitchers like Verlander or Kershaw, and you want to call guys like that, greats. All right, well, they put their time in.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But to call some of these guys greats and legends already, they're 25 years old. This guy could stop playing tomorrow, and you would know from him 20 years from now. You would have no idea who he was. But that day, he was called a great in his one season there. That's not how it works.
Yeah, I agree.
You got guys like Pujols and Miguel Cabrera and Verlander, Kershaw, Molina, Wainwright. Guys like that, where if they stop playing today, they're Hall of Famers.
Yeah, it's like you're glossing over them. You know.
They're greats. They put the time in consistently, year in, year out. It's just we can't do that with everybody. Hype everybody up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why you see a lot of people, young players struggle, and fan bases kind of give up on some of these guys because they're like told that they're Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, like a high shelf compliment.
And one of the best players ever played a game, and then when they're not, right away, they're upset, and then all of a sudden now it's a big problem. Like Gary Sanchez, we went to the Yankees. It's hard to get over that.
Right.
Sometimes you can just be pretty good.
Yeah.
And like, hey, if he develops, if his offense develops and becomes more of a pure hitter, he could really turn into, this kind of Hall of Fame type player. But right now, I see how he is playing the game and how I kind of project his offense, as a steady incline. He's going to be this kind of all-star player we've seen in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, yeah, this guy's coming up. O'Neal Cruz is coming up. Yeah, I got him at A-Rod.
Yeah. It's like,
I don't think that's quite the,
Yeah, give him a chance.
Yeah. Like he's A-Rod. So what if he ends up being better? Like what if he ends up being like he develops better than they think? He's just the greatest player to ever play, never touched the field.
Yeah. Because you already compared him to one of the great shortstops of all time, so
it's like it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
That's where you come across, and it's tough because it's as people who really like the history of the game, and know the Hall of Fame and the great players and the almost good enough to be in the Hall of Fame, or probably deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Tim Raines is out there, or it's not Tim Raines at this point, but Fred McGriff. It's frustrating to see somebody called a great, an all-time great, and then they go up there, you see him compared to this guy and that guy. It's like, give me a break.
Yeah.
Ohtani's never going to be Babe Ruth. He's never even going to be close to it. If Ohtani stopped playing baseball today, no one would know who he was.
Agreed.
Babe Ruth made baseball, right? You can compare this guy to, Yogi Berra, and you're going to compare this one to Mickey Mantle we see all the time compared to. It's just not, plausible.
Yeah.
Compare him to Ted Williams. He's got this lefty swing. He's comparing to Barry Bonds, a swing. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why can't you just compare him to, like, Doug Otto?
Yeah.
Who had, like, a really good career.
Right. Instead of, we're going top shelf with our comparison. It's like, well, you're such and such. It's like
you're Don Alvarez. You could just compare him to Doug Otto because it looks exactly the same. But no, you're going to compare him to Ted Williams.
Yeah.
That's quite the comparison.
Yeah, to go right with one of the great hitters of all time. It's like, okay.
Yeah. So,
you start small, it's okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's frustrating. And I know what to say. They try dragging players in or fans in, and the younger kids and people to click on the reports and things like that. But I don't know. It is frustrating when you know the history of the game and you're like, this guy. I mean, he's one of the greatest players of all time, top 50 players, and you're comparing this young guy to him already. It's like, or you call here comes one of the greats here. one of the best players in the league already, and he had played a half a year. Like Tatis got called up, and it was like he was already one of the best players in baseball, and he, didn't do anything yet. He literally hasn't swung a bat. He's one of the best players. How's that possible?
Yeah.
That's just not possible. He's not. And it's hard to be in a half a year or 1 year. It's 2, 3 years.
I mean, yeah.
It's like consistent because everyone can have one good year. Brady Anderson for the Orioles had 50 home runs. And the guy had 50 the rest of his career combined. Anybody can have one good year, right?
Yeah.
You got to be able to do it 2, 3, 4, 5 times. It doesn't take 5 years to be called great in the game, and it shouldn't. But maybe it takes 2 years to be like, hey, this guy is one of the better players.
Yeah.
You can't just call it how once you see it, 5 seconds in.
So. Yeah, there's players that come to mind. Trout, while I do think he's one of the better players, probably one of the best players of the generation, for sure, which I don't think is an unfair statement because he really has been that good. I've seen wild stuff with him saying that he's one of the best players of all time already. It's like, well, give him to the end of his career. We'll see where his career ends up.
That's a guy who doesn't even have, 2,000 hits?
Yeah, so, I mean, again, I get trajectory, and they say, well, if he continues this way, he's still past where, X player is, so he could be better than that player. But that's when you get into the weeds.
You can't get into that because then you got Ken Griffey, where would his stats be? You have Grady Sizemore. Let's not really get into that. How he could have been then you start getting into all this mess. Jose Fernandez.
Yeah.
Oscar Tavares. I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah,
I'm not trying to do. We're not trying to compare these guys, and then something happens, and then you never know of them. And it's just not what you're.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a little too quick.
Right.
To judge these guys and call them the great. Oh, Ali Rushman, we're going to compare to Johnny Bench.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's hard to live up to. Because the guy might just be a 5-time All-Star and have a really good, maybe Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, be a top 15 catcher all time or something. I mean, what's
and
wrong with that?
Tell him he's the number 1 catcher of all time.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
I agree. Yeah.
You could just compare him to, Posada, switch hitting catcher.
Yeah.
Well, he had a really good career.
Yeah.
He's a Posada type of guy, but if he rounds out this way, he could be, this top 5 catcher of all time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I like that comparison.
Right.
Instead of being like, yeah, that's Babe Ruth. And
reincarnate.
Yeah, he's gonna struggle down to like a Mickey Mantle. Like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. So some guys that I know I thought of. Trout, Harper when he first came out was compared to Mickey Mantle. Because he came up when he was 19, so
he's had
immediately.
An unbelievable career.
Oh yeah, he's been great, but
But he's not Mickey Mantle.
But I mean, when you're talking 2010, kid's 19. And all of a sudden he's Mickey Mantle. It's like, well, geez, let's slow down a little bit. Let's see him have. I think he's had 2 MVP years or something like that. I mean, dude's had a great career. But I mean, they jumped the gun a lot. Trout, they jumped the gun. Tatis, they really jumped the gun because defensively he's a liability and he has injury problems. Wander Franco, they jumped the gun with. Now, granted, he had a great year, so I get that he was really good, but he's 20. He's 21 now, I believe. Some of the other guys you mentioned, like Adley Rushman, they jumped the gun a bit on him. I understand he's switch hitter and catcher. Yeah. That's right off the bat. You like your chances.
Let's dial it back to compare him to someone a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I can obtainable. It's like I'm not, because you never. That's how you lose. Like for me, it's like, oh, I just can't. Because now you just called this guy Babe Ruth. Mm-hmm. Well, he's not. Mm-hmm. He's not. He's not. He's just never gonna be.
Yeah, and it's like you said before with Ohtani. He was getting a lot of very, very high praise. Now, granted, unique player. We don't see players like that anymore. I get it, but yeah, it's not like has a 2 ERA and he's batting .330. It's not like he's
for 10 years.
Yeah, right. So
he did it once.
Yeah.
And he batted .260 and he had a 3 ERA as a pitcher one time.
And that's about where he's sitting this year too. So he's not like we kind of understand about where he sits with his ability.
And he's a really good player, and he's one of today's great players.
Yeah.
And maybe the last 5-10 years, maybe he's one of the great already because of his uniqueness.
Yeah.
But it's consistency that before you can really call somebody, and some guys earn that.
Mm-hmm.
Altuve earned that. I mean, obviously he had his thing with the Astros, but how many years before he was even thought about?
Yeah.
200 hits. Like, he earned that.
And I believe he was a walk-on or something. He wasn't even
Yeah, he's thrown away 10 times.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted him, and he just kept coming back and back. Some people earn that. And then some guys walk in the door, and they're the best player around.
Yeah, I think that in baseball, and I think sports in general, I said this to you before we started recording, I think there's a bad recency bias. I think that if you have a good half a year, literally as simple as that, you are the best. You're an MVP. You're a Cy Young. You're the next great player. You are I think that recency bias has a big problem. I think that things need to be in a bigger perspective. And I think that goes right with this because I think that Sanchez, perfect example, Gary Sanchez, you said before, he was 16, he was top prospect.
He was pudging defense in A-Rod's power, or
Yeah.
something they called him.
And he came up and he had that half a year in 2016 or so where he was unbelievable and he had 20-some home runs. And now look, he's a low average guy, has a lot of home runs, but you pretty much know what you get out of him. And defensively, he's okay. He's got a good arm.
Average at best.
Yeah, he's got a good arm and an okay glove. So, that you got to let these things play out. It's like, and I know this is kind of getting into the weeds in different sport, but I remember an argument I had with LeBron James for a long time was, yeah, he's, trajectory-wise, LeBron James is one of the best players of all time. I don't think that's really in a doubt at this point. But at this point, and this is what people would say that to me 5-6 years ago. I'm like, well, let his career play out. What if he gets 5 more championships?
He was drafted.
Yeah.
Right? He was
yeah.
one in high school, right? I mean, basketball, if it's like you said with the recency bias, basketball's great. Go look at this top 75 player list they came out with.
Mm-hmm.
I think I watched 40 or 50 of them play.
Yeah, right.
Something tells me I didn't watch all these great players.
Yeah, Wilt Chamberlain, Magic Johnson,
and
Larry Bird.
There's a lot on there that I could, you could go on and on. Oh, well, they were on there. Yeah, but there's some other ones that aren't on there.
Yeah.
There's a lot. You just go to the 90s, every team had 2 or 3 of them that were really, 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 really good players.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got guys on there who played now, like, I don't remember some of the guys on there, but, people want Klay Thompson on there and guys like that. It's like, well, they're just not quite, Jerry West, are they?
Yeah, right.
Because just because he plays now and you remember him having that one game where he had 10 3-pointers doesn't mean he's, he played 15 years and he's, one of the great players of all time.
Yeah, right. And that's, I think that, again, it crosses all boundaries in sports, but I think that baseball, I think, does have a bit of an extreme, kind of like basketball. There's an extreme recency bias that I think just plays into a lot, and I think it does, like you said, inflate, the players' expectations to a point where they can't reach it, and then all of a sudden you have a Jared Kelenic situation where he was touted as a top 5 prospect, and he was the Mariners' next best thing next to Julio Rodriguez, and he came up batted 140. He struggled. You're young. You struggle. It happened. It can happen, and it does happen.
And then it's almost like the Mariners system or franchise themselves talk themselves into this, and then he struggles. It's almost like they're ready to get rid of him.
Yeah, and
it's well, Jesus Christ, the guy's 21 years old.
Yeah, I think he can struggle a little bit at the majors. Tough to stay in the show, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I don't want to go into too much more. I already spent quite some time on it already. I think one sport, believe it or not, that does a pretty decent job of kind of spreading that out is football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they'll tell you, hey, that receiver was really good, but you know what? He didn't play now because his stats are different, but they still kind of give that guy his credit.
Right.
Go look at some old lists. They kind of do. Sometimes they do. They still do it. Every sport does it, and every team and writers and reports you see come out, sometimes you're like, that guy shouldn't be there over that guy. But I think football does a pretty decent job with it, sometimes. And then, like, baseball, it's just tough because when you start talking about pitchers, it's like, well, you got Cy Young.
Yeah.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then you got, Verlander. So I don't know if Verlander's quite Cy Young.
Yeah, right.
So let's calm things down a little bit every once in a while. So
yeah.
But baseball is tough when you do have some old guys like that who had 511 wins, 383 losses, and you got guys who don't even have 383 starts in their career, and you're calling them greats. It's just tough. But it is something to kind of keep an eye on because it's not fair to the history of the game.
I agree.
To credit these guys when, boy, they just haven't done anything.
Yeah. I think we, not necessarily me and you. I know we have hype behind certain players, but I think we temper our expectations. Where I think other sports writers and other baseball fans kind of jump the gun.
Like O'Neal Cruz, I think he could be a superstar player, and his size is just incredible. It's a kind of similar idea with Judge, but I'm not going to go out there and call him A-Rod or Cal Ripken.
Yeah,
but the way he can hit the ball, his power and his arm strength, and some of the speed and stuff he could do. Mm-hmm. If he really rounds out in the form and really progresses quickly, I mean, he could be one of those all-time great guys.
Yeah.
But his comparison now, I don't know what his comparison now would be. I feel like he looks like Troy Gall standing there. That's my comparison, just standing there wise. But that's fine.
Yeah. Or sometimes there's no comparison. Sometimes why can't he just be O'Neal Cruz? You know what I mean? It's like sometimes you don't have to go top shelf with any. You know what I mean? It's just this guy's unique. We've never really seen someone like this, so we'll see what he does.
You've never seen a shortstop at 6'7". He's never done it. It's Jeff Kent at second base. You've never really seen a guy who's 6'5" at second base.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do.
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with having lighter comparisons, and there's nothing wrong with saying, well, at some point in his career, he really could be one of the greats. There's nothing wrong in saying that either. But when we hyperinflate it, it can cause more problems for young players because they're social media and the word comes back to them. They know.
And then the franchises themselves almost talk themselves into that. So when it doesn't happen right away, they're like out the door.
Yeah, it's quick trigger finger.
It's like, what do you do? It's hard to make a living and make a life and be a GM and a scout and a coach when it's immediate all the time with everybody.
Right.
If you're supposed to win, then you're supposed to win. I get that. But if you're kind of a rebuilding team or a team that's gone up and up, you got to give the guys chances to be good and struggle and have them come back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just never gonna have somebody to play with you.
Yeah.
3 bad days and you're going home.
Yeah, I think
it's
one of the biggest keys to baseball, I think, is learning to fail. And if you're kind of teaching these guys at a young age when they're in college and in the summer leagues and stuff and getting to the majors, and if they're not quite realizing that they're not going to be quite the player they think they are, that causes a problem in their ego and their problem too, because baseball's such a mental game. If you really believe the hype in yourself, that causes, I think, more problems too. So, we could keep going on this because I know we both agree that it just goes too far. But we'll see. Hopefully, they some teams and sports writers and stuff temper expectations and can let these guys be themselves. That's a big thing too. We'll move on to the wrap-up here of the news segment of the show. Who's doing the best right now, as we always do. The Yankees still own the best record in the league at 49-17, while the Astros own the second best record in the AL at 41-25. The Mets own the best record in the National League at 44-25, while the Dodgers own the second best at 40-25. The Yankees own the best run differential at plus 143, while the Nationals, instead of the Royals, own the worst run differential at minus 109. I don't know exactly what happened there. I think the Royals actually won like 5 in a row, or 3 of 4, 4 of 5 or something, so I think that probably dug them.
Oakland a couple times, a couple of real close games, so I guess their run differential.
Yeah, it must have dug them out of the hole enough to have the Nationals swoop in there and really take it.
The Nationals also got their asses kicked by the Phillies and Braves here of late.
Yeah, so
that's hard to...
minus 109, pretty good.
That's a hole to not be dug out of.
Yeah.
Some teams I got: Yankees, Cleveland, Braves, Phillies, and Giants all been high here of late. Some cold teams: the Rays, Tigers, Mariners, A's, of course, Nationals, Pirates, and Cubs are some teams that have been cold. Tigers been a letdown this year, and Mariners have been a letdown this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's been letdowns.
I'm disappointed, and I actually had the Mariners as a dark horse for the AL West. I thought they were going to be that good.
Yeah. So, but those are some teams that have been cold here over the last, 10 games.
Yeah.
10, 12 games.
Yeah, that's how it goes, in the throes of the season. But yeah, the Tigers and Mariners have been disappointing. I'm disappointed because I actually kind of had high expectations for both. So
I thought Tigers, it's kind of hope Detroit kind of gets something going here, right? Because they've been bad in all sports here for the recent past here.
I know the city can't get nothing going with the other the big four sports. So I don't know, but it's coming. It's coming for them in the coming years. So let's move on to the who's hot and who's not section of the show, where we talk about the 5 hottest and coldest hitters, where Frank brings the pitchers as well. So this week, Paul Goldschmidt, as it seems like he always does, won Player of the Week, and Vlad won it in the American League. I don't have Vlad, but I do have Paul Goldschmidt because that's just what he does.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah.
So I have Paul Goldschmidt batted .423 over the last week with an .846 slugging and a 1310 OPS.
NL MVP right now, front runner.
Yeah, he's just absolutely berserk. Number 2, I have Jake Cronenworth. Batted .520 over the last week with a .760 slugging and a 1373 OPS.
And he's been down this year. He's really starting to turn it around here of the last, even not just this week because he was like 500, but even of the last month or so, he's kind of been riding the wave up and building it up.
Yeah, he's been trending up, which is good because he's a good player. I think he's a key to that Padre team.
Yeah, very he's utility guy. He was the key to that team a lot of last year.
Yeah, he's a spark plug.
It was this guy, and Tatis and Machado, and they had other guys too. I can't think of
Jerks and Profar.
No, let's not go into that. But Cronenworth was just kind of steady Eddie. He played almost every single game last year and batted like 270. He was like, he played short, he played second, he played outfield. He just does it all.
Yeah, he's a key to that team. He's a spark plug. He gets the team going.
Got that Ben Zobrist feel to it.
Yeah, I know.
When you're playing good, you're like, that's the guy we need.
Yeah,
but
he's
when your
getting
team's
on
not
base.
Playing bad, you're like, why do we have this guy? You don't feel like you need him. But when the team's good, you're like, we needed him. That was the key to the team.
Right. He's the heart and soul. Number 2, I have Xander Bogaerts, 500 average, a 636 slugging over the last week with a 1174 OPS. Bogaerts has been really good, and I believe is opt-out year for him, or right?
Yeah.
So he's definitely gonna earn his paycheck. Andrew Vaughn I also have at 478 average with a 522 slugging and a 1042 OPS. And finally, at number 5, I have Charlie Blackmon, had a 423 average over last week with an 808 slugging and a 1272 OPS. Charlie Blackmon, a little bit of an unsung hero over for the Rockies for quite a few years now. Just goes out there and plays his game, and it's just kind of, I guess, I don't know, maybe people, because Coors Field, they just like to just write off any Rockies hitter, but I don't know. But yeah, he's always over there just kind of doing his thing, and no one ever really talks about
a
it.
character in himself. He's
yeah.
kind of one of a kind.
He really is. Yeah, he'd fit anywhere, to be honest. He can go to any team.
As long as he can have that beard.
Yeah.
Some hitters I mentioned here, Luis Robert has been nuts of late. Maybe he can carry the White Sox and get back in the MVP hunt there.
Yeah.
It's been kind of a runaway in the MVP hunt in the AL at this point. Anthony Rizzo, been hot of late, getting home runs and getting the RBIs back up. And Harrison Bader's been good all year. He's been red hot of late. He's about leading the league in stolen bases. He plays one of the best defensive outfielders you're going to see. But he's been hitting some home runs. He's been hitting for a pretty good average. I think on the year, he's batting 260, 270 on the year. Stealing bases of late, he's been red hot.
Right.
Some pitchers, Johnny Cueto. White Sox kind of got him late there, and then he's been pitching. I think he threw 7 shutout innings against the Dodgers the other day. That's cool to see. Shaking and baking out there. Aaron Nola, been great for the Phillies.
Yeah.
After the first couple starts, Tyler Mahley's heating up for the Reds. John Gray had a good start. Brad Keller, I believe, went 8 shutout innings the other day for the Royals. And Emmanuel Clace has been red hot after not a slow start to the year, but he gave up a couple runs somewhat early, and then he's been red hot here lately. I think he had 3 straight or 4 straight days. I think he had 4 saves in 3 days. I think he had 2 saves in a doubleheader or something. He was pitching. Wow. He was going nuts.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff.
Yeah, he's got some disgusting stuff. But yeah, there's some pitchers I wanted to mention that are, throwing the ball pretty well over the last 7 to 10 days.
Yeah, some bigger names there, especially Clace was kind of highly regarded coming in to the year. Let's move on to the cold players of the week. Number 1, I have Nelson Cruz, batted .080 over the last week with a 120 slugging and a 327 OPS, contributing to, I guess, that low run differential the Nationals have.
Yeah.
Number 2, Miles Straw, batted .042 over the last week with an .083 slugging and a 198 OPS. Number 3, Brendan Rodgers, batted .083 over the last week with an .083 slugging and a 297 OPS. Number 4, Bryson Stott, batted .045 over the last week with an .045 slugging and an 090 OPS. And number 5, Odubel Herrera, batted .050 over the last week with an .050 slugging and a 145 OPS. So all those guys with a less than 100 average, not great. Having 2 Phillies on here is obviously not great for their offense. And like I said, Nelson Cruz, kind of coming in as kind of a bigger piece of that lineup in the Nationals, and I don't think overall has really had that great of a year. Now granted, he's 42, 43, so how much do you really expect out of the guy anymore? But
I think he climbed himself up to about 250 of late.
Yeah.
Before this cold streak, but yeah, he's just what happens when you get on a not great team.
Yeah, and don't really have much protection. People can work around you or come right at you or pitch you different.
Unless you're Josh Bell.
Oh yeah, he just does what he wants.
Some guys I had on my list here, I think you might have had a couple of these guys: Miles Straw, Bryson Stott, Elvis Andrus, Juan Soto's been awful. Let's just get right down to that. I have him on fantasy, and for a guy who's really a 3, I don't know. He really should struggle to about 290, 300 average. Mm-hmm. He's batting 218. He's been terrible.
Yeah.
So just throw that out there. He should turn it around, but he's been terrible. So let's just call it what it is. And we have, let's see who else I had here. Randy Rosarena, and I did have Nelson Cruz as well. Some pitchers that are struggling: Luke Weaver, Zach Eflin, Mackenzie Gore got beat up in Colorado. I guess he was like, "Welcome to Colorado. This is what happens."
Mm-hmm.
Giolito's been struggling late. Pablo Lopez has been getting beat up here late after his unbelievable start to the year. And Steve Cishek for the Nationals. I think he had 3 losses in the last week.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been another reason you see a lot of Nationals kind of floating around this list here. So you see why they're not doing good.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense, right?
Yeah. So the next part here, I got some injuries. Some big names on the injury list here, but nothing too crazy for the most part. There's a couple. You're starting with this one, Ryu, Tommy John. So he's going to be done for a while. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa day-to-day with a hamstring issue. They said he's not supposed to be serious at all. Jose Ramirez missed a couple games here, but he's back in the lineup today. Anthony Rendon, wrist surgery is done for the year. He's been awful. One of the worst signings we're going to see here of late, unless this turns around. But first 2 years, he's been terrible.
Yeah.
He's got, 5 less home runs left than he does righty in his contract.
Oh, my God.
If you really want to get into that.
Yeah.
That fun stat there. Yordan Alvarez was day-to-day. Missed a couple games here with his, a secret hand injury it almost was. They didn't really tell you what it was until, yesterday, but I think he's back in the lineup today. They were kind of hiding that, which was a little scary. Ozzy Albies broke his foot. He swung and then just came out of the box and broke his foot. That was very weird.
Yeah, it was
he's going to be
weird.
out for quite some time. That's a shame. Strasburg came back through his 3 innings, got shelled, and probably going to need thoracic outlet syndrome surgery again after he just had it. So he's been actually, I think, the worst free agent contract we've seen. Boy, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
It's been quite some time in baseball. I mean, he's been that bad. I think he's pitched 10 times since they won the World Series in total.
Yeah.
With a 7 ERA. So, that was good. Harper day with some blisters. He should be fine. Just note that I know it's blisters, but he does have the elbow issue. So anytime he's day-to-day, you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Right.
Tyler O'Neill plays back on the IL. It's a shame. He's been getting hot here for the Cardinals. Mookie Betts cracked rib. He's going to miss at least 2 weeks. We'll see what happens there. Machado, they're kind of on the fence with. They said, ankle sprain. He could be on the IL. Then they're saying they think he's not going to be on the IL. Mike has him on fantasy, so he's just kind of...
I have him and Mookie Betts, so I'm not happy.
Give me an answer kind of thing, right? But I had to take my guess. I'd say he should probably go on the 10-day IL. Just take his 10 days.
I agree.
Because you just don't want something... You don't want a high ankle sprain. He's done for 4, 5, 6 weeks.
Yeah, your best player right now, really. The Padres.
Exactly. And Dalton Varsho was day-to-day. He's kind of an exciting player for Arizona, but I believe he's back in the lineup, but will be soon. So that's good.
Yeah.
On the good news, on the good side of the injury thing, Chris Sale, rehab starts. He was thrown 96 the other day. He's supposed to make 3 more rehab starts and be back in the major leagues, which is great. He's a great player. A guy people can, go look for every 5 days and be excited for, especially up in Boston. Tim Anderson activated. There you go. Mr. Flash and Dash, right? People love him. So that's, a good guy to kind of want back. We have Chris Bryant starting rehab assignments, games. That's a big name. Steven Piscotty should be back here soon. That's just a pretty solid player. Might see him at the deadline, get traded somewhere, make a big help to a team in the hunt. Jose Leclerc, who was one of the better closers for a year or so with the Rangers. He's finally came back. That's something to watch for the Rangers, who are kind of in the hunt, or could be a trade piece.
Right. Yeah.
DeGrom, supposed to be facing live hitters here soon. They're hoping he should be back here soon. Max Scherzer, they're thinking could be back as early as the end of June, but you're probably talking more beginning of July All-Star break.
Probably, yeah.
And Seiya Suzuki, they're hoping he starts swinging a bat again. He should kind of come back. I know he was kind of on the rehab, but then he kind of slowed down, so hoping Suzuki can come back here pretty soon. Tatis is not healing as fast as they thought he was. He is healing, but swinging the bat still kind of hold off, so we'll see what happens there. We had Alex Cobb got activated, so there's a lot of big names right there that are kind of progressing back to injuries. And some of the guys who got hurt recently, we had a couple big ones, a couple big names, but we also had some more day-to-day guys who were like, okay, this isn't going to be long, or this is going to be an IL for a short period of time. So wasn't an awful injury week.
Right.
But some big names, but, it is what it is. It definitely could be worse. Especially when
Agreed.
you see some of these names on there. Betts, Machado, Harper, Jose Ramirez, Rendon, Yordan Alvarez, Albies, Strasburg. I mean, that's some big names. And then hear that for the most part they're just, a couple days or maybe a 10-day IL stint, 2 weeks. You're like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, right.
You take that.
Yeah, you take the smaller stints, and that's just kind of how the season goes. You're going to get banged up a little bit, as opposed to Tommy John or this or that, or ACL surgery or Achilles or this, anything crazy that could happen. So,
yeah, exactly. But yeah, and then to the last little bit here, I got the trivia question. Didn't know how to really relate these two to each other, so, but, how to fix something, right? So,
right.
Trivia question: who holds the record for the most consecutive games without a strikeout as a batter in MLB history? And the answer is Joe Sewell, from May 17th, 1929 to September 19th, 1929. 115 games. He did not strike out. He holds the record in MLB history for the strikeouts per at-bat in a career. He had a strikeout 1 every 62.6 at-bats, which is incredible. And legend has it, Mike loves this. Legend has it. He went his whole career using one single bat.
Yeah, I don't
Never broke
understand.
it, never cracked it, never nothing. Used the same bat, and his secret was rubbing it with chewing tobacco. And he's a 2-time World Series champion, so this guy was a good player. It was just some guy who just, was rubbing his bat up with chewing tobacco, and it was like, look at this goofball, he doesn't strike out.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good player for 2 World Series teams.
I hope Ray Schalk rubbed his bat with
I
chewing
know.
tobaccos.
No. Ray Schalk went up there with Swiss cheese bat or something. He didn't do nothing. But, I think he actually might have crossed paths on the same team.
Probably,
Probably.
honestly.
Probably did.
Yuck.
Yeah. But, who holds the record for the most consecutive games without a strikeout as a batter? Joe Sewell at 115 games. So that's just about unbreakable at this point. I don't see someone 150.
No. The last guy we had like that was Tony Gwynn, I think.
Rod Carew, Tony Gwynn, George Brett.
Unless people really want to go nuts with how Stephen Kwan started his career, but,
60 pitches or whatever, or 60 swings without a swing and miss. It's like, how about 115 games? How many swings was that?
Yeah, right.
That's incredible. That's incredible. You're not going to see that, especially with the day and age of the way offense is, but also just the way pitching is. Seeing different pitchers throwing 100 miles per hour lefty, righty, it's just guys spotting right there, painting the corners. It's just a little. I don't think you'll see it. This baseball reverts back to some old school thinking, which I don't think that old school thinking's ever coming back.
No.
115 games. I don't think I don't even know if 115 at bats.
No. I think that'd be remarkable, truthfully.
115 at bats might be a tough one.
Yeah. Strikeouts aren't as, modern baseball doesn't see the strikeout as really a bad thing as much as
you strike out than double play and things like that.
Yeah.
Back then, if you struck out, it was like, well, who are you? Get out of here.
Yeah, me personally, and this is only, we only played baseball, about 8 to 10 years ago in organized baseball. I never liked striking out.
No.
It was like, it's like, wow, I really failed up there. Yeah, I did nothing.
You did absolutely nothing. Yeah, you could have just sent the bat up there and you would have had a better shot.
So I don't know. It changed in the last few years, but I don't see that coming back either. Truthfully, it's just old style baseball. It's just how it is. It's kind of like how you don't see pitchers go out every other day and throw 9 innings. It's just different baseball.
Yeah, remarkable. 115 games. That's 400 at bats or so.
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Baseball has ranged quite a bit of eras and quite a few years and generations. So
it's a completely different sport.
Yeah,
it's completely different.
Yeah, and you could tell we went to the Football Hall of Fame and the Baseball Hall of Fame, and you could just see the difference in the 2 Hall of Fames just in the history and with that. Not to say football doesn't have its history. It's just different. Baseball's just different. It's different to every other sport. You could compare it to hockey because they have their roots too, but baseball's just, for lack of a better phrase, in a league of its own.
I don't know, the real old history of hockey, but you'd have to ask our buddy. I feel like hockey, looks similar to maybe what it did. Baseball, you used to have 10 balls, hit a batter, you used to punch the umpire. Like, that was the rules. Trains in the outfield, running people over.
2-foot home runs.
Playing in the mud. The rules themselves were just different, right? You just use different bats, and you could run this way, and I don't know. The rules were just nuts, some of the rules.
Right. Yeah, they really were.
You had to leave your glove on the field for the other team to use your glove. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That was a rule. You had to do that.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
You shared a glove.
I'm not sure how hockey is, and maybe it does have some real old ones. Just baseball, it's a whole different. It's not even. If this is called baseball and that was called baseball, it's
a totally different world.
Those rules they had back then are like, you wouldn't even make them up when you're playing football as a 8-year-old in your backyard or something. It's like, who thought of that?
Yeah.
Like, let me just make some ruckus. Like, go punch the umpire. If you don't punch the umpire 3 times, you're out.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's just a rule. The umpire wasn't paid, you just got him from the crowd.
Yeah, that's they were unpaid, and you just got a schmuck to, officiate the game. It's like,
and then if you wore a mask, you were like a baby.
Yeah.
So who's this guy wearing a mask?
Yeah.
No, I just take a foul tip to the forehead. No, I'm all right.
It's like, it's, again, the comparison to hockey. They were just out there in skates, didn't wear pads or nothing. It's like, what are you, out of your mind? Take a slap shot right to the nose real quick. And
100 mile per hour slap shot right off the face. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And then you get taken out. You're like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
No, he's just not, his brain's leaking out of his head. No.
Yeah, he doesn't need a hospital, no.
No, he doesn't need to get looked at. At least give him a second on the bench,
Yeah.
No, he's all right. He's running, skating the wrong way.
Yeah.
No, he's all right.
Trying to shoot in the other goal, yeah.
Yeah. He's the best guy. And he looks it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, It just goes to show how different sports and baseball, baseball for one was. So, yeah, good trivia question. I just don't know. I wouldn't have got that when I tried guessing it. It's just not a guy. I know the name. It's not one that comes to mind. So, I don't know how many people out there will get it. But, yeah, that's all I have for this episode, though. That's all the notes I had. Another good week of baseball. Some exciting call-ups. See what O'Neill Cruz does. And hopefully it doesn't get right compared to, Cal Ripken and A-Rod right off the rip. But we'll see. But, yeah, that's all I have. So, I don't know if you have any other final notes or anything like that. But that's all I got.
No, that's it. Yeah, we're coming into the exciting point, so All-Star voting's out and things like that. So, baseball's in full swing, and the other sports are wrapping up, right? Hockey's getting
Warriors won the finals.
Yeah, Warriors won. The hockey's wrapping up, so it's almost just baseball on TV. So,
Yeah.
We're really getting to the exciting part of baseball: trade deadlines, All-Star games, things like that. So we're in a good spot. We're gonna start really seeing the rumors stuff flying.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so then let's wrap this one up. Thank you guys for listening. You can catch this podcast on Apple Podcasts as well as Google Podcasts and Spotify. You can listen on our regularly updated YouTube channel as well as our website, screwball.podbean.com. You can follow me on Twitter at RealMikeCapri. You can follow me on Instagram at Mike Lepre.
And you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at FDubs10.
You can follow our official Screwball Twitter at ScrewballPod. You can follow our official Screwball Facebook at ScrewballPod. No E in Screw. And that's it from us, guys. We'll see you next week.
Yep, take care.